Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome back to session 2. We will begin session 2 of the webinar in a little moment. Hopefully, Derek is ready to begin session 2.
I'm here.
Great. Okay. So I hope you had a good break, and we're back for session 2 of the webinar, where Derek will share with us how to maximize the Academy Stars Year 6 Pupils book by going into greater detail into the textbook. Again, we encourage participation from you. Do share your ideas in the chat box of activities which you think can be conducted with the textbook to better teach our pupils. So Derek, without further ado, I shall again hand it over to you for session 2.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, let me share my screen. Here we are. Okay, yeah, so we're going to look now at the Year 6 Pupils book. We're not going to look at the workbook anymore. I've just given you an example of what you can see in the workbook. I had a look at some of the comments during the break. Yeah, it's not compulsory. The workbook is there. It's perfectly designed really to consolidate learning. So you could use it in the classroom if you have it available, or you could use it for homework, but it's there to support learning. And I think it's a really useful tool. However, the Pupils book is what we're going to focus on from now on in. Now, I could go on for all day about how you can adapt every lesson in every unit. So we don't have all day, of course. But what we do have is a short time that I'm hopefully going to be able to give you some simple ideas and some not so simple ideas about how you can really exploit some of the different lessons. And I've singled out some lessons here, but have an open mind with this session. Have a think about how you can adapt these ideas and these techniques when you use them for maybe different units within the Year 6 Pupils book, and also for different kinds of activities. So while I show you an activity for reading, for example, you might think, oh, actually, I could use this for a listening activity or a speaking activity. So have a think about how you can adapt these. And if you've got any great ideas, please put them in the chat box. We're all you've got more experience with teaching Malaysian students, obviously, than I have. So you might be able to offer more insight to the people who are viewing the webinar as well. So the first thing we're going to look at is going to start at the beginning. So that you remember that lesson 1 is a reading lesson. All right. So I'm going to look at how I would go about thinking and developing my teaching when it comes to these reading lessons, and looking at different aspects of the reading lesson. All right. So the first thing I'm going to look at is preparation for reading. So 1 second. I just want to pull something up. So my preparation for reading, my pre-reading activities are all about using images, okay, and exploiting images. And why should we do this? All right. So why do you think we should exploit images? Have a little go in the chat box and give some ideas about why you think images are important, and why we should exploit them with our students, why we should go a bit deeper in terms of the images. Why are they useful? Yeah, they promote, Felicia says promote understanding. Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. Mafusa, generating ideas. Again, understanding. Some students might be visual, as Nurul says. Yeah, and lots of ideas and vocabulary awareness. Yeah, so we need to exploit images. I feel because the images within the Year 6 book are very attractive and they're stimulating. They not only provide understanding and context, which is what Ahmed and Huzi have just said, for the vocabulary that they're going to be exposed to, the images engage the learners. They pull them into the page. And the images used throughout Academy Stars have solid techniques in ways of developing our learners' understanding. Have a look at these images that in the book. Have a look at them and think about how you can use them as a tool for learning rather than just for decoration. All right. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks so. I've got a nice quote here from Judy Van Scoter, an educator. And I really like this this quote. It definitely reflects how I feel about using images and why they're useful. I think also by using images, you can get students to create their own images as well. But that's sort of further down the line with personalization. Let's have a look at some of the examples of images in our Year 6 book. Here are some really nice examples that I pulled out when I was looking through. So they're very different in terms of the styles of image. Some are real photographs, some are drawings and cartoons. Lots of different examples there that are going to engage our learners. But what I want to do is exploit some of these images and get students to use language to describe the images. So one of the activities that I've used time and time again is what we call an activity called jumbled pictures. All right, it's a very simple activity to do. All you need to do is to make a copy of the picture or pictures that you want to use, and then cut the pictures up into equal pieces. Now, this is obviously perfect if you're teaching face-to-face students. If you're working online, it's a bit more of a challenge, but with face-to-face, this is going to be great. Now, you can use one image and copy it many times, or you can use many pictures cut up into the same amount. So, for example, if you have a class of 20 students, you might have 4 pictures, and each picture is cut into 5 pieces. Then everybody in the class has one part of the picture. Now what they have to do is you give one of the pieces of the picture to every student at random, and that student holds it. They have it like this and they hold it. They're not allowed to show you the picture or show anybody else the picture. They keep it to themselves. They hide it. And what they have to do is communicate with each other. They have to describe what's on their picture and see if they can find someone who's got a similar idea that might be part of the same picture. They're trying to find the jigsaw pieces for a full picture. When they feel that the person they're talking to has the same part of a picture, they join together, and then they find other people. They walk around the classroom, they find other people, and they then build up a group. When they have 5 people, if there's 5 pieces of the picture, they can then sit down together and make up their jigsaw. If their jigsaw fits, then they can relax and then think about what the picture shows, start to discuss what is actually in the picture and engage with the picture further. Now let's have a look at a little example. So I've got an example here. Here's the first part of my picture. So have a think about that. What can you see in this picture? Well, you can see what might be a shirt, potentially. A blue shirt or a blue jacket. It's got some yellow in it and some white in it. So students might be walking around and just describing the colors if they're of a weaker level. But if they're stronger, they might be speculating a bit more. I think it's a person wearing a blue coat. The other person then comes up and says, well, I've got a camera in my picture. It looks like it's part of a door. What's that all about? The next person might come up and say, I've got the face of a woman and she is wearing a blue jacket. That links to the person with the blue sleeve. So they're probably part of the same team. And then they find somebody else who's got a woman or an arm with a blue jacket, and it's linked to someone. A dial looks like it might be a helicopter. There's the camera, and okay, they can put these together and come up with their final picture. So having this jumbled picture is a really nice idea. It's a nice way of them describing. And we don't need to be too concerned about whether they find a group in the right time. We can set a time limit, 5 minutes. And if they don't find the people in the group, no worries. They've just gone around and used some communication to describe something in their picture. But to be honest, it's never failed for me. After a certain amount of time, everybody finds people in their group, and the ones that are kind of left get pulled into other groups. And that's a nice way of actually randomly selecting groups who I want to work together. This is in the Pupils book. I think it's from Unit 3 of the Pupils book, or Unit 4. It's all about jobs. There are 4 pictures within this unit, and here are the other unusual or cool jobs that people are doing. So I would use this as an activity to warm up my students, to get them thinking about the different jobs and what people have to do within these jobs, and stimulating their interest. All these pictures are in the textbook, yes. They're in the Year 6 Pupils book. And as I said, this is from Unit 4. Well, we can't really have group activity due to COVID. So absolutely. So this is one activity that is a group activity. However, I'm assuming that COVID isn't going to be around forever. And I really like the activity because it is communicative, and you will be able to use this in the future, hopefully. So let's look at something that you can use during COVID times with images. Now, the next image I show you isn't from Year 6. It's just I'm trying to elicit from you as a teacher a word. So here you can see, what can you see in the picture? What can you see? Remember, this isn't from the Year 6 book. It's just for me to elicit from you and make sure that you're listening to me. What can you see? The army. Okay. And what are they doing? They're saluting. CHI ding. Yes, they are saluting. That's what I want to get from you. Okay. A salute. Now, why am I using this word salute when it comes up with images? Well, let me tell you now. In the army, I'm not a soldier. I've never been a soldier, but I am aware. I've taught soldiers, and I am aware of this this abbreviation of salute. Does anybody know what the abbreviation salute means? Why do soldiers use this abbreviation? Now, we know why they salute. They salute to show respect to a senior person, but why do they use the word salute? What does it mean? Does anybody know? It helps them with something. It helps them. Okay, they're not moving in the chat, so I'll let you know. Salute helps the members who are of our armed forces and the police. Okay, we know why they do it. Yes, we know why they do it, to show respect. But the word itself they use. Let me pull that away. Why do they use this word themselves? Well, members of the police, members of the armed forces, they often go into situations that they need to understand quickly. All right, they need to understand everything about the situation very quickly, and they use this word salute. So the S of salute means the size. So imagine they're walking into a situation, maybe they're going into a market, something's happened, they need to know the size. How many people are there? Okay, how many people, what's going on? What's going on is next, the activity. So A of salute stands for activity. What are the people doing? Or what's going on? What is happening in this situation? L is the location. Where is it? When I said the market, all right? So it might be a certain part of the market where they are. U is the uniform. What are the people wearing in the situation? T is the time. When is it happening? And E stands for equipment. What can I see? What else is going on? What other things are in this situation? So by using this acronym or this, I'm not sure, acronym or abbreviation of salute, we can get a really nice framework for finding out everything we know about an image. So let's bring an image into our activity. So this is from the reading time activity. It's from Unit 1 of Year 6 Academy Stars. And if we think about these, the acronym of size, what would you tell me if I asked you about this picture? What's the size? How many people are in the picture? The size. It's quite clear, isn't it? Two. Okay, we've got there. Tool says 2, Mum says 2, Neuro says 2. Okay, now I've got 2, but I've also got one horse as well. You can see a horse in the window. All right, so there are 2 people and 1 horse, 2 men and 1 horse. Now, look at that. Already we have 2, okay, and then we've got 2 people, and then we've now changed it to 2 men as well. So we're really defining what's going on in the picture. Now, we might even want to go deeper. We might have 2 men. One is older than the other. 2 men with mustache. One has a mustache and one has a beard and a mustache. 2 men who are maybe they are brothers, maybe they are father and son. We don't know. We can speculate more and think about more about what's going on. Activity, what are they doing? They're having tea, traditional drinks. So we've got lots of nice language coming through now. We've got this word traditional. Serving is a nice verb, isn't it? Someone is serving the other person. Chatting, having tea, yeah. So simply I've got this, drinking coffee or tea. But again, all your lovely words that are coming up. Now imagine you're doing this with students as well. You would have this on the board, pulling up all this nice language and getting them to, as I said, visiting, looking at each other, sitting, serving, all these nice verbs that are coming out as well. Really, really nice. Location. So where are they? Yeah, discussing and chatting. You might even want to consider what's the difference between chatting and discussing. They're in a small house. Good. We've got an adjective to describe the house. Small. Within the house, we've got a kitchen. We've got a living room. So you can see how this acronym is building up a much deeper understanding of what's going on in the picture. So I've got in a house or a cafe. You might disagree with cafe. You might think, why would there be a horse outside a cafe? So on the kitchen floor and lots of this. And now we've got prepositions coming in. On the floor, in a house, beside a table, all these kind of prepositions. It's again building all this emergent language that's coming out. All right. What are they wearing? The uniform. I've got traditional clothes. Okay. They're wearing hats, aren't they? I think the man on the right's wearing a turban, traditional costume. The horse is wearing a bridle, for example. A kurta. See, I'm not sure, Linda, how to pronounce what the men are wearing, but I've just said traditional clothes. But maybe my students can tell me what these traditional clothes are called. The time, when is it happening? So I put here, not sure. It could be the morning, it could be the afternoon. It's certainly not the night time. We know that because it's not dark outside. But we don't really know when it is. We can speculate. We can use adjectives again. Early morning or late afternoon. Tea time is really nice in town. I like that. Yeah. And when do we normally have tea in our situations? It might be a different time of day. And the last thing is equipment. So what can you see in the picture? What else can you see in the picture? And then we've got, yeah, actually with the time, we're using modals of possibility. Might be, maybe, it could be. So we're building up other language there as well. Serving set, pots and pans, kitchen tools, yeah, lots of different things happening here. Pillows, flowers, all those kind of things. So this simple acronym, this simple salute acronym, is a really cool way of building up a big understanding of what's going on in a picture, and then can activate our prior knowledge and really help our students understand what might be going on in the story when they come to read it. One of the ideas that they could use is with the language that they've got and put on the board is to then read the story and tick off any of the words that they've selected in their salute activity. So that could be the first reading activity that they do. And again, it's very personalized because all the language comes from your learners. You can do this with pretty much any image. It's better when there's things going on rather than say a picture of one person. In the previous picture, one person cutting up the grass. Maybe you wouldn't get so much language out of it, but with something like this in a story, you're going to get loads and loads of ideas. If we think about while reading activities now, so we've done some ideas using images. So now I want to think about the text itself and exploiting that text. So what I want to do is build the 4 skills, except writing. Okay, there's not much writing involved in this activity. So build the 3 skills: listening, speaking, and reading, of course, because it's a reading activity. And Hasmaya, you've said the idea is the teacher has to be creative and full with ideas. But really, just let me go back. These are my ideas, okay? But all your ideas are much better than my ideas. So while I have to have a creative way of getting the language from the students, I don't really have to be that creative because my students are ones who are building and giving me all the language. They're the ones who are being creative. I'm just giving them the framework in order to do that. So back to the exploiting the text. So we're going to build the 4 skills. We're going to do some active listening, and we're going to do some reading and grammar transformation. Now, this is a more challenging activity. It works best if you are working in pairs, and I've selected a text here, which is a factual text. Factual text work better with this activity, and you will see why when you look at the activity itself. All right. I love this activity because there's a lot going on, but it takes some work from you to explain, and it takes some work from the students to get used to using it. So I'll start with the instructions. This activity is called a rally read activity, and here are my instructions. And I might put these instructions on the board for my students to see. But the key with any activity like this is that you show the students what they have to do. You model the activity with somebody, then that person, that student will model with another student, then 2 more students will model and 2 more students will model, and then the instructions are on the board. So everybody's clear about what they have to do. So what they have to do is find a partner. Partner A will read, okay? They have the text, okay? In their textbook, they have the text here. And they will read to partner B, but they will only read 1 sentence, okay? 1 full stop, and then they stop and they ask a sentence, they ask a question about that sentence. Partner A then answers the question. Partner A will check it, say, yes, partner B, you are correct, you answered my question. And then partner A gives the textbook to partner B. Or if you are online in a breakout room, they will then close their textbook so that they cannot see the text. If they are reading at the same time as the other person is reading. They are not listening to the other person, so it stops becoming an active listening idea. So they have one text between them, but if they are online, you just have to make sure that they close their books. And again, you will model this. You will do this over and over again until everybody's clear about what they're doing. Partner B will then read the next sentence. He or she then stops and will ask a question to partner A. Partner A answers. Partner B then gives the text back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until you continue to the end of the text. Now let me make it a little bit clearer. So here's our text. All right, so partner A will have this, and partner A only will be looking at this. All right, partner A will say, a power cut hit New York State yesterday. Partner B is listening. Partner A will then ask a question. So what question could you ask? If you said a power cut hit New York State yesterday, what question might you ask to partner B? There are maybe two questions you could ask. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah. So you might say, what hit New York yesterday? Or you might say, where did a power cut hit yesterday? Or you might say, when did the power cut happen? Okay. All very nice questions. Partner B answers the question, and then partner B in blue now has the text, and partner B will read, millions of people from New York to Canada had no light, no heating, and no food. Partner B will ask a question. Here's an example. How many people had no lights? What did the people not have? And then partner A will answer, and we go back and forth and back and forth. So what I like about this activity is the fact that it practices the three skills, not so much writing. It helps our students to become active listeners because they're sharing a text or putting their text down and listening if they are studying online. And it builds grammar. Now, you might be thinking, oh, my students, no way could they do this. It's too difficult to transform the grammar. A power cut hit New York State yesterday. Transform that sentence into a question. What hit New? It's a challenge. I'm not going to say it isn't. So what we need to do is we need to scaffold. We need to help our students to do this activity. So scaffolding, we all know, it provides support for our learners. So if I'm going to do this in the classroom, I've already read the text. I've written out the questions that I think would be good to ask, and I'm going to give them to students. Now, with my weaker students, I'm going to exactly City. With my weaker students, I'm going to give them the questions. All right. They will have a sheet of paper with the questions already written. With my stronger students, because of mixed ability classes, I'm going to give them the questions, but they have an extra task to do. Don't worry about spelling in a chat box. Everybody makes mistakes in the chat box. Don't worry at all. With my stronger students, I've given them the same questions, but I've mixed them up to give them a little bit more of a challenge. So I'm differentiating my learning, and I'm making sure that everybody can complete the activity. I still have my active listening, which I want to focus on. And I still have some element of the grammar transformation because students are selecting the right questions. But what I've done is I've taken a normal reading activity and made it communicative. I really love this activity. It takes some understanding for your students to really understand what they have to do. But once you've trained your students, you can just say, hey, Page 22, rally read, find a partner and get them working. There's not really a lot of worksheets. There's one worksheet and that is the questions. You might have to prepare the questions. Fine, that's your preparation for this activity. But what you get from this activity, active listening, grammar transformation, reading and speaking, it's so much deeper than what it would be if they're just reading and answering some questions. You might not do it for every reading activity, but use it now and again. Let's have a look now at some listening skills. Let me just check the time. Okay. So listening skills are great because you can use listening skills activities for reading activities as well. They can lots of crossover here. But what I have for you is a post-listening activity. All right. And this is a way that you can check that the children have paid attention to the listening. Okay. How do we know our children are actually doing the activity? Are they copying from their friends? Are they just basically just sitting there? Hopefully it's going in this ear and staying in the brain, but maybe it's going out of that ear. We don't, let's check and make sure that they understand. I'm going to use the language in use activity as the listening text. All right. But because I don't want to do the listening with you, what I'm going to do is do this as a reading activity. OK, but I want you to imagine we've just listened to this text. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Please read the text for me. In fact, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Just have a quick read of that text. When you've read it, you can put a smiley or something into the chat box to tell me that you've read the text, please. Thank you. Lovely job. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a listening activity after we finish listening. Now imagine you read it, but imagine you've just listened to it. All right. I'm going to do some a quick check to check that you've listened to it. So I'm going to cover up the text now. And what I'm going to do as a teacher, I have you all now on the screen. I can see your faces. You're my lovely students. You're all smiling. You're all listening like that nice little emoticon there. And you're going to now listen to me read the text to you, but I'm going to make some mistakes. Now, when I make a mistake, I want you to raise your hand. Okay? I want you to put your hand up and tell the teacher to stop. Now, we're in a webinar, so you can't do that. All right. If I'm in my class, my students have got the cameras open, they're looking at me and they're waiting to correct the teacher. All right. So in the chat box, when you hear a mistake, throw in a maybe this emoticon. If you hear a mistake, please throw in this laughing emoticon. Okay. So the first thing that was said that you listened to, or actually you read, says, do you always cycle to school? Yes, I do. I like riding my bike. Any mistakes? So if I'm in a class, Linda's put her hand up. But if I'm in a class, my students would be putting their hands up, saying, stop. There was a mistake. I said, yes, I do. I like riding my bike. It's actually, yes, I do. I love riding my bike. Right, I'll keep going. But there's lots of traffic. Cycling is too scary for me. Oh, we've got a mistake. Now, mode, I might ask you to type in what is the mistake. The mistake is obviously scary. It should be dangerous. Okay, so yes, thank you very much. So if you want to, you can type in the words as well. I'll just keep going for a few more sentences. You get the idea though. So this is great in a classroom when you're face to face with your students, because they're jumping up and they're shouting, stop teacher, stop, and they're really telling the teacher that that they've made a mistake, and they love to correct the teacher. And the same in a online class, you can see their faces and their hands coming up at the screen. Maybe they're using the emoticons, and they really get involved. But you can check understanding. You can check that they've listened. It isn't dangerous. I use a cycle path, and I always wear my gloves. Any problems there? Gloves and helmet. Thank you. Okay, so we can go through, and so on and so forth. So you go through this activity. It's a really great way of checking understanding. You can make it into a team game. So you could have two groups, and the group obviously who's corrected the teacher more gets more points, and you can make it into a competition, and really help to develop and check understanding. I find it a very simple activity. Another great thing about this activity is it takes about 2 minutes to prepare. All you need is the script. That's it. And then you at the start of the class, maybe at the start of the class while students are coming into class, or you're waiting for them, is you just cross out some words, change the words for something similar, and you have a wonderful listening, post-listening activity that is really effective at checking understanding. Now, I mentioned this quite a bit in the first part of the importance of moving from primary to secondary school. It's a big leap for students. All right, so I'm just going to make a little shift here and start focusing at some key issues of teaching year 6 students, and the transition between primary and secondary school. Now, we don't want any of our students to fall into this gap and then have to take a lot of time climbing up. So we want to make this as easy as possible. Now, what do you think are the challenges for children who are moving from year 6 to year 7, from primary to secondary school? What's the biggest things that they're going to have to consider? And I've got a list as well. You get bonus point if you've got the same as me in my list. Okay, so type in your ideas. Very nice, Felicia. So we've got already 2 examples from Felicia and Nur. One is to fit in. So one's a more social idea and one's a more academic idea. Independent learners, new school, new friends. Again, so there's a lot going on, isn't there? That mix of societal issues mixed with personal confidence, guidance, and then mixed with the syllabus and vocabulary in terms of academic issues. Lovely, lovely stuff. What makes me feel happy is that you already have an idea that there is a challenge. So us as year 6 teachers, we need to empathize with our learners, and we need to be ready really to show them and to help our parents as well make that transition to help our students as well. So for example, I've got some ideas here. So organization is a bit more important. So you more, again, you're expected to be organized yourself rather than the teacher organizing things for you. I think we had this in the chat. So that and then making new friends is a challenge. Might be a new school. You might not be going to the same school. So if it's a new school, the logistics, the layout of the school, mix that with a different kind of timetable, different subjects. They might be lots of older kids as well that children have not been used to. So they're used to being in year 6, being the oldest, although they will have been in year 1 earlier, but it's different when you're in secondary. And the last one, different expectations of teachers. And I think this comes into what we're looking at here with language proficiency or with learner autonomy, courage to speak, communicate in public from Ari as well. Really nice, lovely ideas. Now, I would think that, that a lot of these can be helped by parents. All right, so parents can give them support. But we as teachers also need to be understanding that often parents might not be thinking of this. It's been a long time since they moved. We have more idea as teachers because we see it every year that children are moving. So we need to be on the ball with these, but particularly with the last one, the different expectations of teachers. This is something we can help with. Now, in my belief, there's something here that can really, really help bridge this gap. And you've heard me say it earlier today. The 21st century skills and the higher order thinking skills are really going to support our learners when it comes to bridging that academic gap between primary and secondary schools. So let's have a little bit more of a deeper dive now into what we call 21st century skills, but also what we call HOTS. So I've got an acronym HOTS, HOTS, which is higher order thinking skills. So firstly, let's look at a bit of theory. Okay. So who or what do you think of when I say higher order thinking skills? When I say HOTS, what do you think of? You may have been introduced to this before, and if you have, then awesome. You can help me. So it's a person that's very blooms. There we go, Afika. Logical thinking, difficult Ajahn, Raja. I'm just assuming it's Ajahn. Out of the box thinking. Yeah. So what I was looking at actually is people talking about top tier of the Bloom taxonomy. Yes. OK, so that's what I was looking at. So a tiny bit of theory, not going to go into too much detail, but we have this wonderful taxonomy from Bloom. Benjamin Bloom was an educator, he was a psychologist that basically looked at children's education, how children learn. And he came up with these taxonomies. There were 3: cognitive, affective, and sensory. And in our jobs, we normally focus on what we call the cognitive taxonomy, or the cognitive domain, I should say. Okay, so this cognitive domain of thinking starts here with remembering things. All right, you're remembering something, then you, after remembering it, you understand it. Following on from this is you apply it, you put it into some practice. Then you might analyze it within that, and then you evaluate. And the last one, you create something from your understanding and your applications. All right, so this is a pyramid of thinking skills. All right, now they go from lower order to higher order, but I want to make it very clear to you that there is a hierarchy in terms of it being in a pyramid, but there's no just because, remember, understand and apply a lower order, it doesn't mean they're not incredibly useful and important skills to develop. Okay, without them, we can't do the other things. So while there is a hierarchy in this pyramid, they're all super, super important to develop. But we have to develop all of them if we want to build those higher order thinking skills. So here we have the pyramid, and I've got some definitions here. And I'll quickly, because I'm very conscious of time, I'm going to move these across for you. So if I think about create, just have I'll tell you what, I'll give you 30 seconds, just read them and see if you can match the descriptions to the example in the taxonomy. So for example, the create is to generate new ideas. What is evaluate? Have a think about that, and then in 10 seconds, I'm going to move it. So evaluate is all about justifying. Very nice, Megalai, okay, and Intan and Melissa, thank you. Analyze, what's analyze? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyze is all about, yes, breaking into, thank you, Melissa, Christina, Intan, and Huzi, thank you. Apply is using it. And another familiar situation, understand, explaining, and the final one is recalling. So while they're all important, they do have different tiers on this pyramid. Okay, now within those taxonomies, within those elements of the taxonomy of the domain, we have these really nice verbs. These verbs can be quite confusing and probably are only good for teachers. These probably verbs wouldn't be good to introduce to our year 6 students because they're very challenging vocabulary. So what I like to do is use what I call the question, or what we call the question staircase. To take us from lots to hots, we have a lovely staircase. Now, in each of the staircase, we have remember, and here we have some ideas for you to, or question words that you can use to elicit some remember skills. Then we move through. So understand is more why or how or what's the idea? Can you sequence? Applying, what would you do in this situation? How would you feel? So if you're thinking about asking students questions about a text, you can select an area of the staircase and come up with different ideas or tasks to build these skills. Analyze, you might get them to classify words. Evaluating, you might get them to say what they like, what they didn't like, and give you a reason why or why not. And then create, you might get them to think of a new ending. Write it from a different point of view, or role play in another form. Now you might be thinking, why has create got 3 and everybody else has got only 1 idea or 1 or 2? Well, create is actually, it's at the top of the pyramid, but I think teachers are super creative and can often come up with more creative ideas than they can if they're thinking about how to analyze a text. It's easier to create something with that text. So that's why we've got more with create. So hopefully you'll be able to use this pyramid or this question staircase and then come up with different questions and really think about why you're asking those questions. What are you trying to develop? Try to look more at the top. Often our books will give us the remember and the understand, but we need to think more deeper about a text. So let's think about how we can do more at the top. So let's look in practice. So here we have the text from Year 6, Academy Size Year 6, Unit 3. And here I have a really nice text. It's a diary or a blog written by Emma, who's been on holiday in Canada, and she's going to tell us all about her holiday. So I've got lots of nice questions, reading comprehension questions here, but I want to have a look at the lower order thinking and then the higher order thinking. Thank you, Dr. Rabindra, for, yeah, they are equally as important, I would say. But my own thoughts are that course books or texts that you will see generally focus a lot on those lower order thinking skills. So I want you as teachers to really consider the higher ones as well. That's all. That's the only emphasis, is just to think about how much they are used, but they are all equally as important. So if we think about remember, we might have things like what cities are mentioned, very simple. How old is Emma? And when do they fly balloons? All right, so these are very simple questions that students can read and remember the answers to. Okay, building on understanding. Who is the focus of the story? All right, so there are other people in the story, so by thinking about who it is, we can get a clear idea that the focus is Emma. Why is there only 2 times to fly the balloons? All right, so we can understand the idea behind that. And why is something exciting but also terrifying, which is in the last part. So when you do something that's terrifying but it's super exciting, why would that be the case? And then apply. What would you most like to try? Where can you do these in Malaysia? So personalize it in terms of the country. And how would you feel if you walked around the top of the tower? Put yourself in someone's shoes. So these are nice little ideas. Then if we move on to the higher order thinking skills, we can start to look at analyzing the text. Now, the beauty, I think, of this kind of text is it's split into different texts. And you will see that often in course books, you can use them for jigsaw reading, for example. So one student can read the 5th, one student can read the 10th, and then they have to summarize each of the texts. All right, these are really cool for that. I really love the way that some of the factual stories or factual texts are broken up. Analyzing, we've got vocabulary here. Can they classify them into the dates? Okay, can they read it and classify? Evaluating, which job would most suit you? So there are certain jobs in the text which would suit them. Can you write a summary? And which wouldn't suit them? So the job of at the top of the tower, would that be a good job for them to do or a bad job? And then create, they write themselves into the article. And maybe they do an interview with Emma, or they do an interview with the balloon pilot or with the skiing instructor, and build on something like that. But creativity is up to you of where you go from there. But I love the structure of the question staircase. I love the way that it guides you from the lower order to the higher order thinking skills and gives you examples. So please use this when you have a text. In the book itself, so as I mentioned earlier, the think about it activities are all really designed for those critical thinking skills. So they take care of it for you already. And you can even see at the bottom the thinking skill that is being applied. So this is to analyze a problem, reach a decision. So if you do this lesson 8, this think about it lesson, you will be automatically building those thinking skills. If you do the reading time activity, here you can see our lovely characters that we did in the salute activity. You can see here, these are highly personalized, but they are higher order thinking skills. Look at this. Discuss the questions, give reasons. Do you think both tricks were wrong? What do you think of them at the beginning, at the end? They're analyzing, they're applying their own knowledge to it. Imagine that he broke his leg. How would the ending be different? And then they watch it and their ending is different and they come up with their own ideas about whether they like it or not. Also, in the teacher resources, there are additional worksheets for the reading, and again, highly personalized and really focus on those higher order thinking skills. So while you might be thinking, oh God, I've got to produce some more activities, more questions about higher order thinking, you don't, because they're already there. But if you're asking questions to your students about a text, just have that in the back of your mind. How can you use those staircase questions to develop those higher order thinking skills? And here's another example of the worksheets that are available to you in the teacher's resources. Now, when we think of higher order thinking skills with vocabulary, I like to use something called Venn diagrams. Now, you've probably seen Venn diagrams before, and they really do help with higher order thinking skills. And I wanted to introduce this to you because we have vocabulary throughout the whole of the book. We often categorize vocabulary into what we call lexical sets, but we can come up with creative ways where we can also categorize vocabulary in different ways. We can use Venn diagrams as a communicative activity as well. Now, I'm going to focus on using vocabulary for jobs, all right? And I'm going to give to you, and I might do this with my students, to get them introduced to Venn diagrams and how they work. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you two jobs, but I'm not going to tell you what the jobs are. I'm going to tell you some of the characteristic of the jobs and see if you can guess. So the first job is this one, okay? Can you tell me what job this is? This person helps people, they carry a gun, they wear a uniform, and they're badly paid. Now, badly paid refers mainly to my context in Thailand. I'm not sure in Malaysia if they are badly paid. I don't know. Okay. But in my context, yeah, most of you have got it. The last person to get it. Okay, more people are coming through. Okay, I can't read it. I was too fast. But yeah, you've got it in terms of it's a police officer. Now, what's this job? Megalai has said it's a doctor. Yeah, so we've got a doctor on the right hand side. Now, what we're looking at a Venn diagram is to find things that are similar. So you can see here that helps people is the same. We've got a police officer and a doctor. So by using this Venn diagram, we can dictate the descriptions of the police officer, dictate the descriptions of a doctor, and then see if there's any way that they match together in the middle. So these are lovely ways of sequencing or synthesizing information and categorizing them. Now, what I might do now is, after I've given this example, is I might get my students to work together to draw a Venn diagram themselves, to pick two jobs, and to come up with things that are unique and things that are similar of those two jobs. So we might have a gardener and a farmer, for example. So we would come up with different ways of how a gardener works with plants, a farmer works with animals, but they both work outside. So we get the students to create their own Venn diagrams using the vocabulary topic. Now, the vocabulary topic is jobs. Think about it. If you think of countries, you could use it for that. You could use it for so many different topics. Well, my wife is Felicia. My wife is a police officer, and she will tell you that she's badly paid, but I'm not going to tell you how much she earns. I'm not really sure, but they always complain that they're badly paid, and I'm pretty sure that they are. From your starting position as a police officer. My wife she's anyway, forget about it. I'm not going to go any further. Now, getting to know you activities are superb with Venn diagrams. And let me show you how I would use it here. So here I've changed it so it's green because it's very personal. And I've got some questions. So I'm going to answer my questions. So what's your name? My name is Del. My favorite food is pizza. English. Do you have a pet? No pets. Brother and sister, I have 4 brothers. My favorite actor is Brad Pitt. And the sport I like the most is football. Okay, so this is for me. I've answered these questions, and at the same time, my friend is also answering these questions. Okay. Now I'm going to get together with my friend. My friend is called Afan. He's my Malaysian friend who I met yesterday. And I've asked him his name, and he told me his name was Afan. So we have different names. So Afan will stay in the Venn diagram on the right-hand side. I asked him what his favorite food was. He said fried rice. Very nice. I asked him his favorite subject. He told me it was English. Same as me. So we move this one across. I asked him if he has a pet. He said some fish. So that doesn't match. Does he have a brother and sister? He has two sisters. What's his favorite? Who's his favorite actor? He said Farid Kamil. I hope I've got that correct. Forgive me if I didn't. And I asked him the sport, and he said football. So football would go in there. Now, at the start of a class with a group of students, this is a really nice way of using 21st century skills and higher order thinking skills, but at the same time getting to know each other. It doesn't take much preparation apart from the questions, and you're using different thinking skills, and you can use it time and time again. They can now change partners and go to somebody else and see if they have the same. They could even make a third circle with a different person. So for example, you've put in the chat box chicken, rice, fish, 4 sisters, 2 brothers, Jackie Chan, and badminton. So you wouldn't fit in our middle circle, but you would have your own unique ideas. All right. You would fit with Afan though, wouldn't you, with fish? So that would be another link that you would fit in there. So you can see they get more complicated and more interesting. Okay, now I've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to quickly go through. I don't know about Farid Kamil. Forgive me if he's not famous anymore or he's done something wrong, or I don't know. I just Googled famous Malaysian actors and Farid came up. So I hope I got that right, but please forgive me if I didn't. So how do you feel about grammar teaching? Do you like grammar teaching? Yes, Felicia loves it. Good, good, good. All right. So if I think about words to do with grammar teaching, these are some words I got when I asked a group of Indonesian students about how they felt about Indonesian teachers, how they felt about grammar teaching. Maybe some of them are similar to what you feel. Challenging is the biggest one, and sometimes people feel that way. My most favorite, yes, but it's hard to teach. So what I'm going to do is quickly go through a framework for grammar teaching. And I know I've only got 10 minutes to do this, but we'll see. We'll see if we can do it. Forgive me if it's too rushed. We're going to look at a framework. There are 6 parts of the framework. We're going to look at some activities and then how they linked to approaches. Now, when we think about the aims of learning grammar, I've got 4 real key aims here, and I'm going to show these to you quickly. So the first one, the main aim is to strengthen the accuracy of our learners, okay? To make sure that they're making sentences correctly. If they can do that, it automatically builds their confidence when they then come to speak and use the grammar. We want to create an emotional engagement, and you will see in Year 6 Academy Stars, the grammar animations are awesome for creating that emotional engagement, and the colors that they use are great. And we want to increase awareness to build their knowledge of grammar, which will help them in the transition when they have to become more autonomous learners. So let's look at the framework. So we've got this key framework. There are 6 stages from noticing all the way around to experimentation. So the first thing is to notice the grammar. So this is called focusing implicitly. So what this means is we are getting students to look at the grammar, but not really understand at the moment exactly what they are looking at. We want them to notice it. We want them to just kind of think, there's something new that I haven't seen before. I've seen, for example, some of the grammar, but what's this new piece of language that I haven't seen? This is the idea. And we can do this using a memory game. So very, very quickly, just 1 minute, can you scan the text? Quickly scan the text. With my students, I would give them more than 1 minute. I'd ask them to close their books when they finish reading. They're just reading the text, not the questions, just the text. 1 minute. And stop. Okay, now I realize we are pushed for time a little bit, and I want you to understand the technique. You don't need really have to do the activity. But the technique is to get them to notice, to get them to read the text and try and think about something that they might not have seen. Now, you may not have noticed what the actual grammar is, but you can see here we're looking at the past tense. Okay, the past tense has already been presented to the learners. Okay, they've studied this before. It's not something new to them. But what is new to them is this language here, if I can see it above my screen, the language that you can see in Friday, the 16th of March, it says there were lots of ships, so it was difficult to get to work. The river didn't used to be so busy. Then we have Mr. Hales in Friday the 16th. He used to work in my office. Now, strong students might be thinking, I haven't seen this before. This is new. They might not even be thinking it explicitly, but maybe just something's going on in the back of their head. They're noticing that there's something new and that they're then going to be presented to. So in the next activity, we have the input, and the input asks them a question. How do you think life was different in the task? How is it the same? So now we're trying to elicit used to, which is the grammar that we are focusing on. But still, at this stage, the students don't know that they're focusing on used to. They're just focusing on the text itself. But we're going deeper with our questions. And then the awareness, we actually look at the examples. So here you can see we've got used to be an actor, and now children are presented the grammar. At this stage, when they're presented the grammar, they might be thinking this is new, but stronger students might think, that's what I saw in the text. They might go back to the text and say, look, it's here. I can see it now. This is what we're studying now. So they're building their ability to learn by using this technique. If they didn't get it in the text, no worries. We're going to do PPP. Present, practice, produce. So that our weaker students, or our students who maybe don't have those learning skills, can easily follow this PPP approach and still gain an understanding of the new grammar that's presented to them. Stage 4 is the checkup. So we want to check on their understanding, and we want to recycle the language and maybe even make it go a bit further with it. So what I like to do with this is what we call a beep dictation. All right, so it's a very simple activity. It's very similar to our activity in terms of correcting the teacher. So what we would do is we would give them this text. Okay, so they've got this text here. Hang on a moment. Okay, don't worry about it. I've beeped it out already. And what I'm going to do with my students is have them sit down with a piece of paper and no text, nothing, just their books closed and then maybe their notebooks open or a piece of paper. And I would read this to the students. So, hi, Grandpa, can I ask you some questions about when you were little? Yes, of course. Where did you beep to live? All right. And now I would ask my students, instead of the word beep, What word should I say? And my students will write down the word that they think I would say. I used to live in a cottage in the countryside. Did you used to have servants? No, we didn't. I beep to help with the chores. All right. So again, the students would write down the word that is missing, and we would go through the rest of the text. Remember, students don't see the text. I'm just putting this on the board for you to see, but the students wouldn't have anything. They're just listening to the text. This is also a great activity if you're teaching vocabulary. You can beep out the vocabulary words and have them write the vocabulary words. But I want to focus on grammar, so I beeped out all the grammar words in terms of the used to and the didn't used to. So my students can get a deeper understanding of how it's used, and I can check that they can use it effectively. Games are really great for building memories of learning. So we have with used to, we have a really nice true or false game, and this is highly personalized. So the children would write 5 sentences using used to. 3 are true and 2 are false. So the teacher would then check it and then put the students into pairs. They read the sentences and they have to try and guess which are true and which are false. So here's some examples for me. I'll let you read those and decide which are true and which are false. Number 1, do you think this is true or false? T or F in the chat box, quick, quick, quick. Check out my batik. Of course, it's true. Ooh, oh, they've all gone through. Never mind. Yes, it's true. False. Yes, of course. I don't let my wife cook all my meals. How terrible that would be. I often cook as well for my family. And oh yes. And the last one, I used to have a pet cat. No, I don't have any cats because I'm allergic to cats. So this is highly personalized and kind of nice for students to ask questions. They could ask me, what's the best restaurant in Medan? What was your address? How long did you live there for? Who did you live with? All these questions. And if I don't get the questions correct, if I'm pausing or stuttering, maybe that shows that I don't know the answer and it's false. So these kind of things are really nice and easy to do with our students. Highly personalized. Trying it out. So with experimentation, this is the last thing, the last stage of our framework. We have this wonderful lesson, which I've talked about before, but what it does, it takes all the vocab, all the grammar, all the 21st century skills, higher order thinking skills, and puts it into one lesson. This, with the reading time activity, will be perfect for you if you want to put these things together. So just to quickly check, when we think about our aims, our noticing is implicit, emotional engagement is tied to the game, accuracy is our checkup, inductive and deductive input. So this is when we think about noticing as well, is inductive, build confidence and increase awareness in our awareness stage. I do realize that I've gone a bit quick. I've skipped through, but as there will be a recording and I will be sharing with you my email address, because I'm always happy to engage with my with teachers. So please do not hesitate to contact me. The email address on the slide. We can now move into the Q&A, Ezatu. I think I'm a couple of minutes over, Anna, but that's okay. And the survey that we have on the slide here is for me at Macmillan to really help you if we do or when we do further workshops. So please, please, please do the survey for me, and I would be very grateful. And it will help me get better when it comes to doing presentations like this. And as I said, my email address is there. If you want to contact me, feel free. I'm always happy to engage with teachers and teacher trainers moving forward. Ezatu, hi, nice to see you again.
Hi, Derek. Okay, thank you, Derek, for another very informative session. I'm sure these both sessions that we've had today have given everyone a better insight and a better understanding of Academy Stars and how to best use the books in the classroom. They do look very interesting. The books look very interesting, and I hope the teachers and pupils will enjoy using them in their lessons next year. Okay, so we're moving on to the Q&A, and I have gone through the posts in the chat box, and there were a few common questions and comments, which I will try to summarize and ask you, Derek, these questions. Okay, the first question is, do the teachers have to follow the order of the lessons in the textbook? Like you began with reading and then the lessons progressed accordingly. Can the teachers decide the order of the lessons, or are they interdependent, and you would suggest the teachers follow that order?
It's a good question. I think I would probably follow the order, because when you see the unit walkthrough as we went through, you see that the reading lesson introduces vocabulary that's then used later on in the unit, in the reading time activities, but also in the think about it activities. The grammar that's introduced in the third lesson, so we have lesson 3 is the grammar. What then follows in the language in use is another addition to that grammar. So, for example, if they were teaching used to, for example, the thing we looked at last, you would have the positive sentence and the negative sentence. And then in the language for use, what might be introduced is then the question form of used to. All right. So in that way, I would follow the progression of the units rather than jumping back and forth.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's another question here. How adaptable would you say are the topics or the content of the textbook for the teachers to personalize them to local contexts? Meaning, are there many, how would I say, alien quote unquote topics or texts which the students may not be able to relate to because, you know, it's not within our context? Or are the topics and the content, specifically, for example, the reading content, quite general and very easily adaptive to any teaching and learning context of any country?
Yeah, I'm just now looking at the topic areas. The topic areas are generally, or I say generally, but they're generic in that respect, in terms that they're designed to fit all contexts. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. The skill of a teacher is that ability to be able to bring the content into the local situation, if you like. So when I showed you those areas of personalization, I gave you some examples of how to personalize. As a teacher, as a Malaysian teacher, you're going to be so much better at it than me, of how you can then adapt that to the Malaysian culture. But you will see all the way through the Be a Star activities, for example, are really great for personalization and for getting teachers to think about their own context and getting students to then personalize it for their own context and make it more meaningful. So I don't see any challenge here. I don't see, maybe like if you think about I'm just thinking about the story of the girl who went to Canada and traveled. Obviously, there's skiing and snow and ballooning. And if I think about the Malaysia and Thailand being similar in terms of climate and those kind of activities, we might not see those here, but that doesn't mean that we can't show students the outside world, right? and then think about, would it be exciting to do those activities and try and personalize it in that way? So using more imagination rather than the personalizing of deep personalizing of certain activities.
Yeah, I agree with you that, there's no harm in exposing our students to, phenomenons or events or festivities, for example, of other cultures. It will enrich their learning further. It's just that sometimes, we need to find a familiar context in order for the students to make that connection and to understand better. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm just flicking through now, and I really see no challenge with any kind of context in terms of it being different to a Malaysian context. It's quite generic, as I said. And stories are very, they're very easy to follow, and I think probably the stories are very personalized anyway. And I think you'll see the questions in the stories always asking them, are there similar stories in your culture? And generally stories, they do have very similar themes, right? So a story within this culture that's been used, and it's not a Western culture that these stories come from. It's from other different cultures. You saw the images. That's certainly not a Western scene within the salute images, but we want children to be able to relate those stories to their own cultures. So, yeah.
great. Okay, another question. Um, should we, God forbid, go back to, a fully online learning environment, because we don't know what will happen in the next year? Would the textbooks, do you think, be adaptable to a fully online learning context? Like, are there a lot of pair work or group work which require the students to be physically in the classroom to be conducted, or are they adaptable even for fully online learning?
Absolutely, fully adaptable, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, the videos themselves can be played quite easily. I didn't play the videos, saved a bit of time, but also when I played the video that time, we had a bit of a crash situation. I It worked perfectly during the run through that we had a few days ago. So using that technology would be really easy. The actual structure of the book lends itself certainly for online learning. Teachers need to make some some changes to the way that they deliver, but that is a skill that they would have to do if they used any material teaching online. So, you know, often the challenges of teaching online are not materials. The challenges are engagement, getting students interested, getting students to turn their cameras on, using breakout rooms effectively. The classroom management of that is a challenge. But there's no reason why you couldn't use Academy Stars Year 6 online as well. It would be very, very adaptable.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions that we have. It's just that I'd just like to, share with you a personal observation I made regarding your, presentation of the book. And what I found very interesting was that the book addresses transitioning the students transitioning from primary to secondary, that bridging that academic gap, because maybe especially for year 6 teachers, maybe we are the teachers are focused on the exit requirement rather than also looking at the entry preparation needed for secondary, and it is a big leap in terms of, as what the teachers shared, fitting in, being more independent. So sections in the textbook, the learning to learn section that you shared, where it promotes learner autonomy, I think that that's very interesting, that this textbook also reminds us as teachers that we're not only preparing the students to exit primary, but also to equip them with the skills and the knowledge to enter secondary. So that's very interesting, I feel.
Yeah. And I think the kind of questions that we're asking learners, particularly, in those think about it activities, those pages, obviously the learning to learn, giving them the strategies to develop learner autonomy. But I really love the questions. The questions are asking for opinions. They're asking them to think deeper about things, and this is the kind of question that they will be expected to answer when they go into secondary learning and as they go through that. So moving through those higher order thinking skills is a really key area to help our students with that transition.
Right. Thank you, Derek. I think we have come to the end of the Q&A. There doesn't seem to be any more questions posted in the chat box. Yeah, so we've come to the end of the Q&A. Thank you so much for all your questions and your comments. And we hope that whatever was shared during both sessions, has been very helpful and in helping you prepare for next year. So all the best to the teachers for 2022. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you, Derek, for joining us today and for sharing with us your ideas and suggestions on how to fully utilize the Academy Stars textbook and workbook. Despite how fickle the connectivity has been today, like you said, all went well during the dry run. We were thinking, okay, everything's great. And then, it decided to kind of like play with us a little during the actual event. But nonetheless, everything went well. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we will have more sessions with you in future, possibly. Maybe even a face-to-face session. You would come over to Malaysia. Not sure if you have been or when was the last time that you came?
I've been many times.
Okay.
I've been previously. I used to go to. I think a lot of people in Thailand. I used to go to Penang for holidays. I love Penang, Batu Ferringhi, and the best thing though, this is quite strange, but is breakfast. Roti Chennai for breakfast. It's my all-time favorite, and I was very lucky. A few years ago, we had a conference, a Macmillan conference in Kuala Lumpur, and it was awesome. I was in Kuala Lumpur actually. I was in the what's the tower? Not the Petronas Tower, but the one on the hill.
The KL Tower?
Is it the KL Tower? Yeah, and they have an observation.
Yes, the KL Tower.
I was in the KL Tower watching the workers build the Twin Towers. That was the first time I went to KL. So I've been there many times, and I love it. Love it.
Good. Well, then another trip over is due, I feel.
Yes.
Okay.
I will ask Larissa, and yeah, before you go, thank you so much for your your emceeing, your hosting, your moderating. Yeah, I thought you did a fantastic job, and very want to say thank you to Larissa, my colleague, my boss in Thailand, who has organized all this from this end and has been a great help. So thank you to Larissa too.
All right. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, Derek. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before I take my leave, I would like to highlight just a few things, a few reminders from the organizing committee, if I may. Number one, for those of you who are asking, the recording of this webinar will be uploaded on YouTube, and the link will be shared soon, if not already up. Well, it will be shared soon because it's not over yet. Okay. Number two, don't forget to collect your special Shopee and Lazada voucher via the link in the chat box. Number three, please fill in the attendance form for both sessions 1 and 2. The links are also in the chat box. And finally, please, if you could kindly fill in the evaluation form, which is also available. The link is available in the chat box, as well as the evaluation form for Derek. That would be a tremendous help to the organizing committee as well as to Derek. Before I take my leave, I would also like to extend my personal thanks to ITBM for the opportunity to moderate today. It has been my absolute pleasure, and it has been wonderful meeting you, Derek.
You too.
I shall now pass the session back to our MC, Muhibuddin. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, and goodbye. Back to you, Muhibuddin. Muhibuddin, you're on mute.
Sorry for the technical issues. Thank you very much, Mr. Derek, for the comprehensive presentations, and thank you as well to Puan Izzatul for moderating the sessions. We hope that all the teachers have received valuable input and are determined to be more creative and innovative in teaching the English language for the students, especially with the aid of the Academy Stars Year 6 books. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are nearing the end of our webinar for today. But before that, let us tune into the closing remarks by the Director of the English Language Teaching Center, ELTC, Yang Berusaha Puan Farah Mardi Aman.
Sri Hajjah Nur Zamani binti Abdul Hamid, the Director General of Education, Ministry of Education Malaysia, distinguished speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I am very pleased to be here today to officiate the closing of this webinar. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation on this collaboration between English Language Teaching Center, ELTC, Macmillan Education, and Institute Terjemahan dan Buku Malaysia, ITBM, to organize this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar entitled How to Maximize Our Ability to Teach Using Academy Stars is indeed very useful and timely, as the Academy Stars, the new Year 6 English Language textbook, will be used by all Year 6 pupils beginning next year. I am sure this webinar was very beneficial to the Year 6 English language teachers, as they were given the opportunity to explore the different parts of the units together with Mr. Derek Spafford, the regional trainer and academic consultant for Macmillan Education. I hope that the participants are now familiar with all the units in the Academy Stars Year 6 English language textbook and are confident to use this textbook beginning next year. Ladies and gentlemen, the 21st century education landscape demands that educators to be equipped with latest teaching methods, techniques, and strategies to address the needs of the 21st century learners. In addition, the post-pandemic new norms also require teachers to apply various interesting and interactive teaching methods to attract and engage learners during English language lessons while maintaining the required procedures. Although lessons with face-to-face interaction have resumed gradually, online learning will still be practiced. I am glad that this webinar has also equipped the Year 6 English language teachers with knowledge and skills required to prepare online learning and integrates current teaching strategies that appeal and engage the Year 6 pupils. It is my sincere hope that all Year 6 English language teachers who have attended this webinar would internalize the knowledge and skills shared and implement them when using the Academy Stars Year 6 English language textbook beginning next year, regardless of the mode of learning. Finally, I also hope that you would share the knowledge and skills that you have gained via this webinar with other English language teachers in your district. With that, I conclude my closing speech by thanking Macmillan Education for the presentation in the webinar. To the teachers viewing this webinar, I wish you all the best in your career. Thank you.
We would like to express our gratitude to Yang Berusaha Puan Farah Mardi Aman for the closing remarks. It is hoped that all of us will benefit from the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our program for today, and I would like to remind that all participants for this webinar shall receive digital certificates via email.